Imagine you walk into a car dealership. You've done your research. You know exactly what you want. And then the salesperson leans in and says 7 words that sound almost too good to be true. You can drive this today for $299 a month. And just like that, your brain does something fascinating. It stops thinking about the total cost of the car. It stops thinking about what you're actually agreeing to. It locks onto one number. $299. That feels manageable. That feels affordable. That feels like a win. And that right there is exactly how the leasing trap begins. Because here's the thing. That $299 a month deal is one of the most cleverly designed financial products ever sold to everyday consumers. It looks like a shortcut to driving a nicer car for less money. But underneath the surface, it's quietly doing something most people never see coming. Today we're going to break down exactly why leasing a car is almost always a financial trap, what's really happening to your money every single month, and what wealthy people quietly do instead. Let's start with why leasing feels so attractive in the first place. Because to be fair, it genuinely does make sense on the surface. You walk in wanting a $45,000 car. If you were to finance that car over 5 years, you might be looking at payments closer to $800 or $900 a month depending on your interest rate. That's a real chunk of your income. It feels heavy. It feels like a big commitment. But lease that same car. Suddenly the payment drops to $350, $400 a month. The car is newer. It has the latest features. And every 3 years you get to walk back in and upgrade to something fresh. For a lot of people, especially in their 20s and 30s, this feels like the smart move. Why buy an aging asset that loses value when you can always drive something new for less money per month? And this is where the psychology gets really interesting. Because our brains are not naturally wired to think in totals. We are wired to think in payments. Monthly, weekly, daily. Psychologists actually call this unit price neglect. We focus on the smallest unit of cost and we dramatically underestimate the full picture. It's the same reason a $5 coffee doesn't feel like $1,825 a year. The small number feels harmless. The full number would stop us cold. And the car industry knows this better than almost anyone. So let's pull back the curtain and look at what leasing actually is, in plain language. When you buy a car, you are paying for the entire vehicle. You own it. You build equity. And eventually, you own it outright. When you lease a car, you are not buying the car. You are renting the depreciation. Here's what that means. Let's say a car costs $45,000 today. After 3 years, that same car is worth around $27,000. That $18,000 difference is called depreciation. It's the value the car lost just from time and use. When you lease, that $18,000 loss is essentially what you're paying for, spread across your monthly payments, plus interest, plus fees. The leasing company keeps the car. They keep whatever value is left. You hand back the keys and walk away with nothing. So you paid $18,000 or more over 3 years and you own exactly 0% of anything. Now let's compare that to buying. If you financed that same $45,000 car over 5 years and then drove it for 8 or 10 years total, you'd eventually reach a point where you have no payment at all. The car is yours. And even if it's only worth $8,000 or $10,000 at that point, that's still money you have. That's still an asset in your name. The buyer reaches a finish line. The leaser never does. And this is the core of the trap. Leasing is designed to keep you in a permanent payment cycle. You finish one lease, you roll straight into another. 3 years. Then another 3 years. Then another. You are always paying. You never arrive anywhere. Think of it like renting an apartment versus buying a home. Now renting a home can sometimes make financial sense depending on your situation. But nobody pretends that paying rent for 30 years straight builds wealth. With leasing, somehow people convince themselves that doing the equivalent with a car is the smart financial move. It isn't. Here's where it gets even more interesting from a psychological standpoint. Because leasing doesn't just cost you money in the obvious ways. It costs you money in ways you never even think to measure. The first hidden cost is the mileage trap. Most leases come with a mileage limit. Typically around 10,000 to 12,000 miles per year. Go over that limit and you pay a penalty per mile at the end. Usually somewhere between 15 and 30 cents per extra mile. That sounds small. But if you drive 5,000 miles over your limit across a 3-year lease, you're handing back an extra $750 to $1,500 on top of everything else. And that number catches most people completely off guard. The third hidden cost is the one almost nobody talks about. You cannot build equity in a leased car. And here's why that matters so much. When someone who bought a car finishes their payments, something powerful happens. They eliminate that monthly expense entirely. Let's say their payment was $600 a month. Once it's paid off, that $600 is suddenly free. They can invest it. Save it. Direct it somewhere that builds wealth. The person who leases never experiences that moment. They go from one lease payment straight to the next. That money never becomes available. It just keeps flowing out, month after month, year after year. Over a decade, this difference is enormous. Let's put some rough numbers to it. Say you lease consistently from age 25 to 55. Over 30 years, even at just $400 a month in lease payments, that's $144,000 that went entirely to renting cars you never owned. Zero equity. Zero asset. Nothing. Now imagine instead you bought a reliable car, paid it off, drove it for years payment-free, and invested that $400 a month during the years you had no car payment. At a historically average 8% market return, over 10 years of investing that $400, you'd be looking at somewhere around $73,000. Not from doing anything complicated. Just from redirecting money that used to disappear into a lease. That is the real cost of the leasing cycle. Not just what you pay, but what you never get to build. Now here's where I want to be fair. Because leasing isn't evil. There are situations where it genuinely makes sense. If you run a business and can write off lease payments as an expense, the math can work in your favor. If you absolutely need to drive a specific new vehicle for professional reasons and the tax benefits are real, leasing has a case. But for the average person, the person just trying to build financial stability and long-term wealth, leasing is almost always the wrong move. So what should you do instead? The first option, and honestly the most powerful one for building wealth, is to buy a reliable used car outright or finance one at a reasonable price and drive it for as long as it runs well. A 3 or 4-year-old car with low mileage has already absorbed the steepest depreciation. You get a quality vehicle for significantly less, and every payment you make is building toward actually owning something. The second option is to finance a car you can afford, pay it off, and then stay in that car for years. The moment your payment disappears, that money becomes one of the most powerful financial tools you have. You can redirect it into investments, savings, or paying down other debt. The third option, if you genuinely can't buy outright right now, is to focus on the total cost of any car deal, not the monthly payment. Get out a calculator. Multiply the monthly payment by the number of months. Add the down payment, the fees, the insurance costs. Look at the full number. That number tells you the real story. And the final thing. Notice how you feel when you walk into a dealership and someone offers you that low monthly payment. Notice how your brain immediately relaxes. That feeling is the trap activating. The moment you feel relieved by a monthly number without knowing the total, slow down. That's your signal to dig deeper. Here's the thought I want to leave you with today. The leasing industry is not selling you a car. It is selling you a feeling. The feeling of driving something new. The feeling of affordability. The feeling of flexibility and freedom. And those feelings are real. They just come at a price that most people never fully calculate. Wealthy people, the ones who are genuinely building lasting financial security, are almost never the ones leasing luxury cars on monthly payments. They tend to be the ones driving paid-off, sensible vehicles, quietly directing the money they save into assets that actually grow. Because here's the simple truth about wealth. It's not built by looking rich. It's built by making choices that most people find boring in the short term and powerful in the long term. The car you drive says a lot about how you want to be seen. But the money you invest says everything about where you're actually going. And that is a trade worth thinking about the next time someone offers you a great deal for $299 a month.